All right, we just finished up podcast number 8. It went great with Rico of Made in Riverside. He and his wife, Rihanna, have developed just this amazing kind of collective of different makers, and it's on the corner of Central and Magnolia. Just amazing.
Yeah, one of the coolest shops and stories I've heard in a long time, where they were creative type people and were making stuff and going to different markets and, selling stuff online, and realized that there wasn't any type of store or outlet, especially here in Riverside, for local makers, whether it's soaps or wooden spoons or anything that's just handmade and creative. There wasn't an outlet for people to sell that other than online. So we went through their story of finding a spot and making that business and working with makers and growing it, and then evolving into doing custom furniture and custom pieces. And just, we talked about some of the specific pieces that they've done that you can actually see around in Riverside, and talked a little bit about music and technology and how technology has influenced the arts and being creative, and talked about pagers back in the day. And so, great conversation.
It's always an interesting conversation when we're talking about our pager codes that we had in high school.
Yeah, definitely. So great guy, great people, great shop. So if you haven't been to Made in Riverside, you definitely want to check it out. Their hours are limited right now, but you can go online to their website and see a lot of their products and buy them there as well. So today we sat down with Rico of Made in Riverside. Here's that conversation.
This is the Create Podcast.
Well, thanks, man, for coming out. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we've when we first came back, several people had said to us, "Have you been to that store Made in Riverside yet?" We kept saying no. Jennifer Gamble, I think, was she the first person?
I think Jennifer Gamble was the first. But then I grew up with Julie Reintz, so.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
She was like, "How have you not been there? We love that place."
Yeah, and we had her on the podcast. She was like our second guest
She's
on
awesome.
there. Yeah. So are you from Riverside? You and your wife?
Yeah, my wife Rihanna, she's been here her whole life. I lived off Pierce Street. I always used to say, like, we lived in Riverside, but I kind of hung out in Corona. But then after I met Rihanna, we moved here. So yeah, pretty much the whole life.
What school did you guys go to?
Rihanna went to, I don't know. That's terrible, huh? But I went to Corona High.
It's Corona?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, we grew up Riverside. I went to North.
Okay. I wanted to say North, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
So
there's a handful of them there in Riverside.
Sure.
And you guys started Made, was it 2015?
2015.
Yeah.
We started with 7 makers, including me and my mother-in-law and my father-in-law, and another friend, and then we talked 4 other people into doing it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And we know where you are, but how do you describe, like, to other people, when you describe exactly where you are?
We're on this, Made's on this corner of Central and Magnolia, basically, right off that. Yeah. And we always use Pepitos as a reference. You ever been to Pepitos? Right across the street. Yeah.
Was that your first location when you started?
Yeah, well, so we started with doing Long Beach, Rose Bowl, and things like that. And that was our thing. That was our gig for 2-3 years. On the weekends, I was a union iron worker. I did structural steel. And on the weekends, we'd load up the U-Haul and take our stuff to those places. And I always had the concept of, like, there's all these antique places, but there's no, like, maker space, like, where people just sell stuff that's handmade.
Yeah.
So we were like, let's do that. And then as I got busier and busier with work, and I was stopped able to go. Sometimes I had to work on the weekends and became a foreman and stuff. And so eventually I stopped going, and then eventually they said, how about we do this now? And I was like, all right, let's do it. Yeah. It's a lot of work, man. It's a lot of work waking up at 2:30 in the morning to get out there and get in your spot, break it all down and unload it all and load it back up.
And you started just with stuff you were making, right?
Actually it all started with my in-laws. They were making, my father-in-law would build these 3-seater benches, and my mother-in-law, amazing paint, she could paint amazingly, so she'd paint them. And that's how it started. And then my father was like, hey, you got scrap steel from the job site. Why don't you, make a table or make this? And I was like, man, I could do that. I mean, they throw this stuff away. I can bring stuff up. So I started tinkering with that kind of stuff. And then, so we're doing that, and it just kind of grew.
That's awesome. So then yeah, obviously had the idea knowing that there wasn't a space like that in Riverside and wanting to get one started. So you just started looking for spots, or what did that evolution look like?
Yeah, so we looked at a couple spots downtown, and it was weird because we weren't established, and no one was willing to kind of like take a chance on us. Like who are you guys, and what do you want to do? You want to do what? And then so we were really cool with the owners where we're at now. They liked it, and they gave us a chance. So 5 years later, we're
That's
still
awesome.
Yeah.
and we expanded 2 years ago. We signed a lease on the neighboring property. They blew out the wall and got some more square footage, and we're close to 200 makers now.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So when you first started, you had 7 makers. Like, what kind of stuff? What were they doing when you
So
started?
we had benches. We had some of my furniture. My wife was painting furniture at the time, and to that. We had a friend of ours did photography, and he did some print on wood stuff. We had a lighting guy, that guy that made some cool lamps.
Yeah.
And then there was a guy that we'd met at Rose Bowl. It was weird. I ran into him. He was like, "Yeah, take this stuff." He made like functional tables and stuff, but out of like the one piece we had was like gears, or it was actually it wasn't gears. It was from turnbuckles, 2 turnbuckles, and he had the top of it looked like a surfboard, but it was shaped wood, and it was him, Ray, and I'm missing somebody. I know it, but
That's
yeah.
cool.
So and that was it. Like I seen pictures of like the first one we opened. You're like, it looks like a gallery or something. Like
Yeah.
you got 7 items in here.
It's very minimalist.
Yeah. And then it just got packed and packed and packed.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's so cool to see. So we grew up in Riverside and left. I left in 2001. I went to school back east, and I'd been gone for like 20 years. You left shortly after, and then we moved back about a year ago. And it's so, especially Riverside, to see how much, I'm sure it was there, and I was younger, so just didn't realize it, but it seems to have grown a lot of just with the Rain Cross Bell and kind of pride in Riverside. So I'm sure you guys have quite a bit of stuff like that in the store.
Oh yeah, we got tons of rank, and that's the thing that we didn't even see happening was obviously with local artists, they represent, and so we were like, someone would come in like, hey, I make these rain crosses. Like, okay, cool. We're like, we'll see how that goes, and then it's like, oh, here, and then so like, oh wow, like there's a lot of Riverside pride.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and it's cool.
It is cool. Like, we have a couple of friends that we graduated from high school with that have the Rain Cross Bell as a tattoo, and one of our friends has a wall, or like a Riverside wall in their house. It's so cool. Because, Riverside was not cool when we were in high school.
I mean, like I said, I hung out in Corona, and it was like, it's funny because through the store, I've gotten really involved with the community, through the chamber, and through government leadership and all that. And we were asked to sit on a economic board. They brought in, they were talking to local business owners to see like, what do we need to do to help bring the economy up here. They brought in an analysis, or what's the word for that?
Analyst?
An analyst.
Yeah.
And one thing that I sat in 2 of them. One thing that came up was the vision of the Inland Empire and Riverside. Like,
Yeah.
and that, I mean, growing up, that was the thing. But they've really like knocked it out of the park. And
Yeah. When was that?
Yeah, it's amazing.
that was a year and a half ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So they've put a plan together and stuff like that. But I thought it was just crazy that like everybody acknowledges like there's a stigma. Like even though like you'll talk to people like, where are you from? And you're like, Riverside, and they're like, oh, and they don't even know, they're not even from California, and you're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So but they're really making big strides for that. People are realizing that Riverside is amazing. It's growing so fast, and it's a really unique place. Like they always say, it's that hometown feel. It's like a big city, but like still
that small town.
Yeah, that small town
Feel with the big city numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is, because like between the 2 of us, we lived all over. I've lived in the South, and lived in Texas, lived in outside of Boston, and you lived up in Washington, and just seeing a lot of different places, a lot of different cultures. But just such a unique place. I mean, obviously there's nostalgia for us and being born here and growing up, but it really is a unique place. And with this podcast, our goal is to basically find people from Inland Empire is really our focus, but Southern California, but people in the Inland Empire that have created something. So with us, we just love the arts and love being creative and having that outlet in our life. It's, feels like breathing in a sense. And us looking to find people in the Inland Empire, there's so much here in Riverside, and we're lining up guests, and I keep saying, we need to kind of spread it out. But obviously we live here, and it's what we're close to. But I keep saying there's just so many cool things and people here that have done unique things. So it's a perfect spot for your shop.
Yeah, I thought I was gonna have to I thought I was gonna struggle to find makers. Like I thought I'm gonna have to start going to neighboring places and all the kinds of shows and begging people to do it. And I was like, I'll do it, like because I'm passionate about the maker part of it, and the art part. But I'd say within the first year, like it so fast started taking off and people wanting to come in, and I was like, wow, that's cool. It's insane. Every time we say a number, Rihanna will count through like, all right, we have these many contracts. These are people that are active, and these are people that, have moved or whatever. And it's just every time I hear that new number, it's like, wow, really? Wow, really? Like it seems like, 6 months ago we were at 100, and now you're saying it's 150.
That's great.
So, yeah, and through that we started the Magnolia Center Marketplace because doing the market that's where we came from, the Long Beach and stuff like that.
Yeah. So
we really needed to bring some energy down there, we thought, to that Mag Center area. And so that's when we started the market. And the market this year would have been the 4th year.
We're just like not counting 2020. It's just like it's like a gap year.
Yeah. It's a reset. It's the reboot. It's like when you turn the computer back on and you're just waiting for it to reload. And so we had that, and then from then about 3 years ago, almost 4 years now, I officially quit doing ironwork, and I just do custom fabrication. Like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Citrus Swing on the Hampton Inn downtown. No. So it's an art piece that the Greens and Hampton Inn reached out to us to design, and it's steel on a wall, but it's a swing you could sit on, and there's a glass mosaic behind it. And then we designed a camera so you can take a picture. You can put your phone number in, go sit on it, and then take a picture, and it'll text you the picture right then.
That's cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. I need to go check it out.
And so that's what we focus on, like cool art installations. We did a pretty big rain cross bell for it's over by Prohibition. And it's all hand bent steel, and it's a big rain cross.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that's really cool.
Oh, we did that one, and then but that's like it was really cool to be able to like anybody like they was like, could you build this? And I was like, we can figure it out. Yeah, we'll do it. And then it's like, oh wow, and it's like okay, and so we did for Stronghold Engineering. We did a 62-inch chandelier. We call it the chandelier, but it's a big chandelier. It's all wood. We patinaed it, and it's all out of oak. It's got lights hanging down from it. Has their logo on it. But that's why I really like making unique, cool pieces for one of a kind things. Like no one's ever gonna have that. Like that's what I like.
Yeah, that's cool.
So it's a crazy ride the last 5 years.
I bet. So you and your wife are both full time.
Yeah.
With it, yeah. Yeah, Rihanna
she is the driving force through Made. She handles all the. I'm more of like the face, I guess, but she's the one who really runs it. And we talk about that, and she's always working on that. And then Alderette Designs is kind of what I focus on. But yeah, and we help each other with paperwork and help her with things she needs to go there. And it's just crazy. Like you said the other day, it's like sometimes it's crazy to think like when the market's going, we got 3 businesses that we're trying to grow and keep running.
Yeah.
It's like a constant juggling act.
Oh, yeah.
And kudos to you guys with your name too. Just it's so perfect. Like so simple and
that was my mother-in-law. Like we were sitting there like, all right, what are we going to call this? And she's like, Made. And I was like, done. Like that's it. Like that's perfect,
I love things where you're not like overthinking. Like sometimes you go and it takes people like 10 minutes to describe and they're like, because this time when I was in high school, I really liked this music. And you're like, it doesn't need to be that complex. Like Made is just like perfect.
Right. Yeah. And then the logo, I mean, it's moved in the beginning. It was like, I remember we went to Flagstaff and like 2 months later, we're building out a place. Like we went on a little vacation, and that was the last vacation we took. and then we get back, and it's like, in 2 months, we're building out a place, and we have the name, we got the logo, and like everything just seemed to like just click, 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 click. It was crazy. Like no worries or struggle. Like it was so weird. It was like meant to be.
It's so funny because I think we've all had, the opposite experience probably many times where you're trying to do something, you're just like so many roadblocks.
Right.
So I think it makes you like so appreciate. And, it's like we've had that happen a couple of times where we're like, this is just going so smoothly. Like everything's coming together. Must be meant to be.
Yeah. Or what am I missing?
Yeah. Or like, oh no.
Yeah. Do I not realize something terrible happened?
Yeah.
What did I miss?
So what does the process look like for people, for your makers, people that are like, what does that look like at this point now?
The process to come in?
Yeah.
So we always ask makers to come in. Like we get a lot of requests, like, do you want to sell this? Will you sell this? And it's really like they got to feel it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So we have, like, you guys been in there. We have, that was my goal, was to get like something of everything. Like there's no, as long as it's handmade and there's some heartfelt put into it. You know what I mean? Not someone going like, I'm going to mass produce this, real quick. And that's what I'm doing. Like,
yeah,
there's got to be a feel to it for the most part of most of the things in there.
Yeah.
So I always ask the makers, just come on down, walk the place, feel it. There might be a maker that's making the same stuff that you're doing already.
Yeah.
And we tend to really try and put, we don't like that, like the same, we don't want to carry the same thing of somebody else. But that's really not even been an issue, like, because everybody's creative in their own way.
Yeah.
So that's cool. And then everything's on consignment. So that was kind of our model there. And then after that, put it in there and
off you go.
Yeah. When you guys first got started, like the first year or two, from a business perspective, like how long did it take you guys to get to a point financially where you're like, okay, this is going to work? Was it pretty immediate or learning curve at the beginning?
We've been doing it for 5 years, so maybe 6 years. Well, no, we got comfortable for a second, but then we realized that, I mean, it's definitely an act of love. It's not it's not something that's gonna.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of.
It's not your $1 million idea.
Yeah. And so we had just went black, and the neighbor property opened up, and we said, what do you want to do? Are we gonna go back to the red, or do you want to? So we talked about it for a minute, and the one side was already just packed. Like it was hard to walk around and stuff like that. And so let's double our overhead. Is that what we're gonna do?
Like, this seems like a good idea.
And so that's what we did. And it was the same thing with the market. Like we always laughed because we just keep pushing forward. And so it was like the one store, and we're like, and then like the market. I mean, the market is it's a break even thing. That's more of an act of love too for community, and we love seeing that. And then the expansion, and then the fabrication shop, the workshop, then we signed a lease on that. So so I guess we're young still, and we're just
getting there.
We're building the foundation. We can call it that way. Yeah.
What's the fabrication shop, workshop?
What is it?
Yeah.
That's Alderette Design. So that's where we do custom furniture, custom art pieces, custom. That's like a fabrication side.
Okay.
So using my background in ironwork and
Okay.
and
Is that
steel.
all you for the most part?
That's all. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, that's all me. And
Yeah.
I have a guy that works with me,
Okay.
and then that's what I push for. So like, we have a decorative art porch enclosure we're working on right now. We have we're working on a sign for a local business. We have. I'm listening to a lot of things. It's been coming. We're working on some gates and fences for a couple people, and then I'm looking at like brass handrail. Later on today, we're going to look at that job.
Yeah.
So it's basically it's all just kind of unique stuff though. So like if you want just like regular like picket fence, that's probably not us.
Yeah, you're like, I'm
Right.
not your guy.
Yeah, because they do all day long, and we can't do that. We're working on an Ipe custom bent bench. Like the steel's all bent and laser cut out, and it's all custom. And it's for resident for someone's home, but it's a nice piece. We recently completed a few months ago. We converted a whole room of like a library in a house, and we did it all black and steel with custom brass handles.
Wow.
Live edge desk with a custom base that goes out, and stuff like that. I really like
cool.
to get just like the really cool, unique stuff where no one has it.
It must be nice for you creatively also that like you just never know. It's like
Oh yeah.
different every single time.
Well, like one thing. So we go. Our process for the fab is design, bid, and then fabrication. So we offer design. So we'll do full renderings. We'll come up with concepts. We'll meet down. We'll sit with you, and we'll go like, well, I don't really know what I want, but I want this. It's like, all right. Well, then we'll draw up some drawings. See what you like. If you like something of this, we'll put it together, and then we narrow it down, and then we do a full rendering. So like right now, we're doing. A customer called up and they said, I have this old bell, but I want to turn it into a rain cross on this podium in the back of our new house that we're moving to. I said, all right, we could do that. So we drew up, multiple designs. It's going to be probably about 12 feet tall.
Wow.
With we're going to convert the old school bell. We're going to build the rain cross around it so it becomes a rain cross. It'll be all hard edge steel with a big piece of copper, hammered copper coming down the middle and lights coming up on it. So
Cool.
It's going to be really cool. And so that's the stuff I like doing. Like, it's cool because I like making stuff and people like it. Yeah, of course. But like to have someone, like even if I made you guys something cool and it's like right there and it's what you guys wanted, like that means a lot more to me than like something out big somewhere else, Like
Yeah.
I've had customers that are like, please don't share this. Like, don't post this picture. You
Yeah.
can't use it for your portfolio. It's for us.
Right.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, that's cool.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had that experience as a photographer before also where people are like, don't put this online.
Yeah.
And, I'm like, I can respect that you just want it to be
It's mine.
your own.
Yeah.
I get it.
And it just when there's heart and memory into something, it means so much more. Like we have our kitchen table we had custom made years ago when our kids were much smaller, and when we moved out from North Carolina, it's pretty much the only thing we brought. Like we're getting rid of everything. We don't want to move everything across the country, but it's like, well, we have to keep this table because it's the only one like it. It's at the time when they made it, it was the biggest table he had made, and so I mean I'm sure these made more sense then, but for us it's like this is unique. It's ours. It's where we've sat. It just means so much.
It
When you
has
have
like our daughter's signature.
like when she was writing homework,
Yeah,
like
she
went
was
through the
doing
table.
homework and it like
yeah.
went through the paper, but
Yeah.
you can like see and like different. Yeah,
And then last week our puppy chewed on the leg a little bit. So
she did. Yeah.
20 years from now we'll be like, that's where Zoe
Yeah.
ate a little bit of the leg.
Right. Yeah, I had one customer that we did. It was her grandma's table, but it was like really old and it wasn't fitting their house anymore. I was kind of torn on it, but I proceeded. So what I ended up doing is I cut they wanted it longer, so I cut the table in half. I cleaned up the edges, and then the chairs I went with it. They had this wood decorative, and I inlaid it in resin. And then we reinforced the bottom of it, and we changed the legs. We did the legs different, but we used all the material except for the resin. Everything else in screws and wood glue was from the table, but we just basically
That's
chopped
cool.
it all up, and then reassembled it. So it was kind of cool. Like,
Yeah.
she still has grandma's table.
Yeah.
It's a little more modern now, and
But it's her.
it's her. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
What the market we haven't been able to go to with everything that's going on? What, how big is it? Like, what kind of vendors do you have coming out to that? And
So we have up to, I think it's about 70 vendors. We could fit on, I think it's 80. I think it's like 82 vendors we can get on that street.
Yeah.
And we're usually about 80 to 90% capacity.
That's awesome.
We get at least over 1,000 a night. People come through based on the ways that we check it, and I think we're probably on the lower side.
Yeah.
As we push food a lot, so it's a lot of hot food. People making barbecue, Indian, hamburgers, Mediterranean. I mean, just anything that tacos and anything that everybody wants to make. So we push that. So it's kind of like a food market. So that gives people a reason to come out and hang out. And then we usually have a bouncer for the kids. That's free. Just something so they could do and have some fun. We have music and entertainment. And then we have some makers, some smaller stuff. So you could have someone selling like custom signs that they do, or and then we have hummus and stuff like that too, and just all kinds of stuff you'd see probably like very similar to the Redlands one.
Yeah.
You know, if you think about that, but it's not
cool.
that big.
Yeah. And how often and when?
It's every other Saturday, usually from April to November-ish.
Okay.
October, November.
When we're not in the middle of a global pandemic.
Right. I mean, we just pushed it back to August 5th, or the second Saturday of August right now.
Yeah.
But I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, utmost the social responsibilities, the first thing needs to happen.
I know I look at bounce houses and I'm like, are we ever going to do that again? Like,
yeah, who knows?
Are we ever going to get back to bounce houses again? It's interesting. Yeah, I think that there's going to be things, bounce houses might be in that category, that we're just not going to do.
I don't know. I'm hoping this all plays out in a year or so. You know, like it phases out. But there's going to be things that people become habit and culture to. So
yeah,
it'll take longer for that to phase out. Like obviously I'm not a doctor, but I don't think this is going to last forever.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see like what. I feel like we're on like the cusp of a new world.
Well, I just read an article comparing to the Spanish flu. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we're not, obviously that came and went. A lot
Right.
of people died and all that, but that was also, well, we didn't have planes back then, so that was one thing. But also too, we didn't have the same medical treatments we did too. So there's a give and take on that. I don't know.
Right.
And then what?
There's pros and cons.
Yeah. What the Black Plague? You know, that was another one. So
Yeah.
it seems like it'll cycle out. Hopefully.
Yeah, I don't think the virus is going to be around forever. It will just be interesting to see. Because I know for me, I'm like, oh, yeah, that is a very, like, germ-intense place. Like, because I'm, like, the least germ-phobe person. Yeah. Like, I grew up with 5 brothers, and we have 5 sons. So, yeah, it's definitely, like, opened my eyes a little bit to different degrees of exposure.
I know. I've thought through that, like, how many things are we going to lose? Like with 9/11, you know, it's like, oh, you can't go up to the gate anymore to pick someone up. Like,
right.
There's certain things that just forever changed how we live.
Yeah.
So it's just, I often go back and thinking like, how many things are just going to go away? Like, not that they're a big deal, but like buffets, salad bars, you know,
right?
That just going to, are we going to be like, remember when we used to have salad bars? Like,
yeah. Or about what's a buffet? You're like, you go and serve yourself and eat as much as you want. What?
Yeah, what are you saying? Yeah. You stuck your hand into the thing?
Our kids will be telling their kids the way we try to explain a payphone or a pager.
But like the way we
geez.
explain phones to our kids. Yeah.
So my son asked me, he's like, how old were you when you got your first cell phone? I was like, 22, I think. And he's like, what? Grandpa didn't like you? And I was like, no, we didn't. I had a pager.
Exist.
Yeah, I had a pager. He's like, what's a pager? I was like, you put the phone number and it would beep, or like a text. I was like, those are the nice ones. Yeah. I didn't have one of those.
If you were lucky.
Yeah.
And you weren't like making up codes, only using numbers.
I know. I was over by the Galleria, aka Tyler Mall, and drove by over where God, Circuit City used to be. I hadn't been there in forever, and so I'm driving like, oh man, Circuit City used to be there, and then I'm like, oh, that's where I got my first pager.
Right.
Little shop over there.
Was it that King's?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I got mine too. That was the place to go.
It was,
That's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
I remember being so excited when I got one that you could text, and not just a phone number.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we used to have like codes. Like, so we'd get off work and you text your buddy, and like everybody had their own code. So you would say like you'd send out codes, and then the other codes we'd have for is like where we're at.
Yeah.
And then it was just funny. Like, you would look at it just be just numbers, but
Yep.
I remember, or like if someone, they would text you not a phone number, they would text you their code, and we're like, all right, I got to call them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
We had
you remembered people's phone numbers too, though.
That's true. Much more than like, I couldn't even tell you some of my children's phone numbers right now because I'm just.
I don't know any of them.
Josiah. Yeah. We dated in high school, so we had like a whole system of pager codes in high school.
Well, yes, because I graduated year before, so her senior year I was working, and so if like she had a part-time job, so if she was getting out of school or working and I'm out somewhere, so we had all these different, like you said, codes where it's like, okay, I can meet you, or
Right.
yeah.
It's like a whole.
And we were
thing.
flying under the radar too, because we weren't exactly supposed to be dating. Little
My
parent
parents-
conflict,
Yeah, my parents weren't.
but so
that
we
good.
really had codes. It's like 111 meet at this place or meet over here. And felt like I was James Bond.
It's such. I feel like our generation is so interesting because there's so many things that like came and went during our generation in
yeah.
a way that I don't know other generations have really experienced. Like our kids have had cell phones in their, like when our 10-year-old was a baby and he was like 1 and could unlock my phone and get it, but like we had pagers come and go. We kind of bridged the VHS CD streaming situation.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm looking at
Napster.
your guys' tapes and CDs, and like that's how I remember I had my box in my truck with all my tapes in it and stuff like that, and then we got to CDs, and that was cool. And like I'd have the 100+ pack, and
Yeah.
sitting there trying to figure out what you want, and it's crazy because like now at the workshop I'll listen to like most of the time it's either Pandora or Spotify, right?
Yeah.
And just let it go. But like you'll hear a song like an old band you listen to, like you have that album and you're like, oh, and you're like, you're ready for the next
Yeah,
song,
yeah.
and you're like, no, but some in my
Yeah.
they don't make. I don't think they make albums. Like albums
It's
are meant
so
to like
different.
listen to.
Yeah.
And you like you go into one song, you're feeling it, and then you know the next song, and like you could just keep going. It's a weird feeling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like the song that's like you can feel the song starting before it starts because that's what's supposed to come next.
Yeah.
That just doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, and it becomes like a whole separate thing, where as, musicians and bands, when they're putting together an album, at least especially back then, there was so much thought put into, they might have had 25 songs and it was like, okay, we're making this album and we need to pick out 8 or 9.
Right.
Which ones do we want to pick? Do we like which ones fit together and the order? And like there was just so much to it that's just, for the most part, just doesn't exist anymore.
And if you wanted to know the lyrics, you had to open the sleeve, and
Yeah.
I know. I've told this story before of, because Mark is obviously a collector. And I think you had gone to a concert with one of our teenagers.
Yeah, took him to a concert.
And the like newer bands are now selling tapes and CDs at their concerts. And so one of our teenagers like bought a CD at this concert that they went to, and he like opened it up and he was like, "Mom, did you know that the lyrics are like inside this CD?" Like it like blew his mind. Like he was like so shooketh. Because he's the kid that likes lyrics, so usually he's like Googling and
Right.
listening to this, like the fact that it was just like there. Like, I'm like, yeah, that's what it was for.
Which is so ironic because for us, there was a transition where, like, just that, there's so many things that this applied to, but for that specifically, there was a time, like, obviously I love music and followed a lot of bands, and I would be the one reading the lyrics and pulling it out. There was a transition where it's like, oh, wow, I can Google, I
Right,
can Google and get them. But then for him to have the opposite
Yeah,
thing,
he,
like,
had the
this is
total
amazing, I can
opposite.
have it in my hand.
It's
and
all together.
It's all together, yeah.
Well, imagine like I remember like LimeWire or Napster, like to download
Yeah.
an album, like he'd be like, don't turn the don't turn the
Right.
modem off for 2
Right.
days, please. I'm
Right.
trying to get this album down.
Yeah.
And then you get it, and you go to listen to it, and like it's some other album, someone missed,
Yeah.
and you're like,
Or it's
what
corrupt,
the heck?
or-
But
yeah.
now you can like at a moment's notice, like you can think about a song, and go, I want to hear that song.
Yeah.
Yeah, music's always been really big. Like my first concert was the Ramones. I was 13 years
Oh,
old.
That's
wow.
cool.
My sister took me and her boyfriend at the time, and I mean, really shortly after that, like I remember going to like 3 or 4 shows a week, probably. Like
Yeah.
that's just average. You know, we had the showcase right there, so that was always really close. And but I remember like the LA Weekly. Like you wanted, like people would get, like if anybody came out to Mad Platter, like are you going out to Mad Platter? Yeah, I'm going out today. Grab the LA Weekly, and or someone would always have it every week, and then you grab it and you circle and you make notes of what shows, and then you'd hand it off to somebody else. And
Yeah.
if it wasn't an LA Weekly, there's a good chance
Yeah.
you didn't know, unless it was your buddy's band and they were playing somewhere else.
Right.
That there was a show. So, and now it's kind of weird. So I think we've stepped away from that because there's so much resources now. There's not a
Yeah.
1-2 spot.
Right.
So, I think it's, and I don't know how that works, but like, yeah, sometimes you go like, I think I heard about that band. I think they're the band that opened for the other band that day. Well, let's just go. Okay,
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, I think it's more like, I know that for our kids, it's more like venue based. Like they're following a venue
Right.
on social media, and like which is like totally kind of backwards from.
Well, yeah, you could
It's-
show up to the wrong night on a band.
Right. It's funny.
But I think there's something just about the having something tangible and physical, you know, like where music isn't, you know, it's audible, it's not you're not holding it in your hand anymore with Spotify and Pandora. So like I had a transition probably 10 years ago where I had gone from, you know, cassettes and CDs and collecting CDs, and have the giant, like you said, I had that giant book in my car, you know, like 500 CDs, and to Napster and thinking this is amazing. Like one, I can get it for free and I can have them all on my computer. And about 10 years ago, kind of, you know, I still use that. Obviously it's convenient, but at a transition of like going back and like getting CDs. And I think I was at a thrift store. I'm like, oh, I remember I had that CD, and like open it up. And then that turned into
And that's
this
how
where,
this happens.
where I, you know, trying to basically get everything I had and everything I didn't have on the different formats. But there's
Well,
just
then
some,
there was the whole iPod era where like we all had like every song or every album we've ever loved on
yeah,
a device
yeah. But
that
it,
you might drop or break or lose. Or...
oh, and I remember I got one of my first iPods, and at one point, like every piece of music I had or listened to was on that, and then
Yeah.
it broke, and I didn't back it up. It's like, it's
Well,
gone.
and yeah, I remember
Yeah.
like you didn't have it anywhere else, and you were like so traumatized.
Well, that was like we moved about a year ago, and I found that case, and I started going through the CDs, and like you forget about like you're at a show and they handed out the, you know, with just a CD, and you're like, whatever happened to this band? Like they didn't make it or whatever. They didn't
Yeah.
pursue it. But you're like, this is still a really good CD. Like I don't know, like Vic Ruggiero from Hepcat. Like we saw him do a solo thing, and I ended up buying one of his CDs. It was like $5, but he had the spool, and you just get the CD. And I had that, and he's still around. He's still doing, and he's done those songs, but they were different recordings, and I'm bummed. Like I don't know if I'll ever have that again.
Right.
So there's something to that.
Yeah. What, I mean, we're talking about that transition from, you know, music specifically having a physical version and going over to just, you know, digital. In your guys' world and with makers and the art world is how, I'm just curious with technology and digital and kind of combining, you know, those two worlds. If you have makers that are doing that, or what you guys are seeing.
Well, yeah. So we have makers that like, I mean, there's makers that do laser cut stuff. Like you think like back in the day, like laser cut out stuff is that's insane. One of them's got one in his house, you know.
Wow.
It's like he can do some really cool laser stuff. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff too is online. So like I've done fractal burning, and then we have other makers that do fractal burning. It's dangerous, but there's all kinds of videos online to show you how to make your own.
What is that?
So it's using electricity to burn into wood.
Okay.
So
yeah.
you've seen it looks like lightning had hit it or something like that. But like that's crazy. And then a lot of things people like they'll see it, so like resin work and stuff like that. Most of it is all we can go online and learn it, you know?
Right.
And so that's the benefit of that. Like with makers, like people that are creative that might not go like, I want to do this. Like I'm an awesome, amazing woodworker and I really want this look. And you're like, I don't know how to do that. Or like, no, here you go. So that's where I think a lot of makers and people that use their hands are really, when it comes to YouTube and stuff like that, they thrive. I mean,
It's huge.
that's information right there. And
Yeah.
I mean, I do the same thing. Like if I got to tap a hole or something, I look on my phone real quick. What's the pallet size for that? Like,
Yeah.
those are things that you would never like. You'd have to go like, oh, where's the chart, and things like that.
Right.
So there's so many times where, yeah, that's the benefit of technology on that side.
Yeah.
We should have a lot more progress than we do probably.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, it's crazy because like a few years ago, I got into like wood carving spoons, and I remember being a little kid, and it was probably Mr. Rogers or some show like that where there was some guy carving wooden spoons, and I was like, I remember watching, like, oh, I want to do that so bad. That looks amazing. And 30 years later, like, you know, and I had that thought over the years, like, it's just something super interesting. And then, like, you know, 30 years later, I have that thought again, and which is a few years back, and I bought a book, you know, on wood carving, and I'm so not good with instructions and reading. So I remember reading it, going through it, and just like, so I just go to YouTube and search, you know, wood carving, and
I was
then
gonna say,
4
YouTube
hours
was, like,
later,
made for
after
you.
you know, watching videos and you know, getting into doing it, but it's such a great tool for, like you said, for the creatives and for the arts, because I think probably especially for younger people like our kids, that's all they know. You know, it's like, well, if I want to know something, go to YouTube. But you can go to YouTube and see someone doing it. I'm like, okay, if he can do it, I could probably do it.
Well,
Right.
and you're able, it's such a better like resource of finding the specific thing that you're trying to learn. Like
Right.
I kind of taught myself photography, which involved going to the library and like checking out this many books and like working my way through them. And I always joke that, you know, like Photoshop is, I've been a photographer for 20 years. Photoshop is like this big of a program, and I know like this much of it. But, you know, back in the day, I would have like finding the very like finite specific question that I have in one of those books. I could have been doing that for a week. And I can just Google and be like, hey, I need to figure out how to, you know, like I need to erase just this part of the image. And I have it in 30 seconds. I watch a video and I'm, you know.
Well, and you know the program does it. So I use AutoCAD.
Right.
And
Right.
so I did AutoCAD in high school. And so now the version is so much more. I know there's so much more that I
Right.
could do with it than I do. But when I'm drawing something up, I'll go like, I know you got to be able to do that. You got to be able to do this. And like, how do you do
I
this?
could never figure it out myself.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So
Yeah,
the
similar.
downside though of information, I think, is false information, or that's I guess I'll take back what I said, because there's a lot of misinformation or things like, this is how you do it, and you're like, you got really lucky there, dude. You could have got hurt, and now you're showing all kinds of people to do it this way.
Right.
So that's the downside. Obviously, it's not as prevalent, but that's one thing I talk with my kids about: fact checking.
Right.
Like, you got to fact check stuff. Like, don't be that guy that just like, I read the headline and I shared it. You're like, no.
Well, and also maybe some common sense. Like our kids watched a YouTube video like a long, long time ago when our big kids were 9, 10. They're like 19 and 20 now. But it was like burning your hand with, you put like salt in your hand and then you held a piece of ice and it like burns your hand, that they saw on YouTube. And so they did it and like totally burned their skin. And I'm like, maybe some common sense. Like
if it says it does that,
yeah.
why did you do
My
that?
first question
I wanted
is
to see if it worked.
why? Yeah, that's the mindset right there. I want to see if it worked. But yeah, it's an interesting. YouTube is like an interesting, like, so much benefit, but then also some downsides too. Because I think that you lose a little bit in the creative process, you know, where normally I think, and even like with me, like with the example that I gave with Photoshop, normally I would, you know, poke around and try to figure it out and probably learn some new things in the process. But now I'm just like, you know, in and out. So I think we have to all balance, you know, it has
Yeah.
to be like a balance of like you said, fact checking, common sense, see if you can figure it out, and then also Watch the video.
And watch the video and see if it all works.
Yeah.
So what your store right now, if someone was walking through, what are some of the like main things that you guys are selling right now?
Oh man.
It's like there's 200 main things.
Yeah.
Like the most popular stuff.
The steel rain crosses are popular. Coffee mugs are popular. Masks right now are popular.
Yeah. Do you have people handmade or like,
Yeah, people are hand
making
making them. Yeah.
That's cool.
Mats, doormats. But it's really hard to say popular because most of the things are, and I guess I'm saying only those things because those are the things that are kind of mass produced. So you think about that, 90% maybe of the shop is one of a kind. So when you ask like what's the big sellers, like we don't carry a lot of the same thing. I mean, some skincare lines we carry, and then the people that make the mugs, they make mugs different. Maybe the glasses, they make the glasses with different ones. But those are the reasons why, I guess, in hindsight, looking at it now, those are the things that sell the most because, no, wait a minute. They're the ones that we have multiples of, and that's why they sell.
Right.
Yeah.
Where you could have something that's one of a kind and it's sold right away.
Yeah, and you're like, we'll never know if it'll sell again because no one's going to make that again.
It's gone.
Yeah.
And you're probably, the goal is to have your like client base be as diverse as your maker base, right? So you're having like different people with different tastes and different
and that's where
things they're looking for.
We go from the rustic look to the clean look to like we have painting. So that was always my thing. And my mother-in-law is amazing at like staging stuff. So it's cool because like you can come in here, you're like, well, my house is all mid-century and I don't think this will look. But if we have a mid-century piece and another piece that might not go with it, it's like, oh no.
It works.
That flows.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah.
So that's cool. It's like we try to diversify the whole, like we don't keep this here, this here, this here, this here. Diversify the whole thing because diversity is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that that's like kind of what makes a house a home is just taking things that don't necessarily all fit in the same style, but they fit in the same style because it's things that you like.
Yeah.
And that makes it, that's the gel that kind of brings it all together.
I'm really big on liking what you like, not liking because it's a
specific style.
Yeah.
There's so much freedom in that. I feel like I spent so much in my 20s and early 30s liking stuff because I was supposed to or other people did, but I had, probably even 5 or 6 years ago where I was able to just really own like, because I'd always had that desire, like I'd always like what I like, but then there's that pressure, like, well, this is popular. Or, there's so much freedom in just saying, you know what, I'm going to like what I like, and that's it. So freeing.
That was one thing that always tripped me out. So, like, I got into punk music really young, and that was, I mean, especially because of my sister, but that's what I liked at the time. And I listened to all kinds of other stuff. I mean, I think I had a Vanilla Ice tape, a Bon Jovi tape.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then I had DI and Germs. And so it's like, it was always kind of that thing but I got a lot of slack for liking punk.
Yeah.
And then around that time, NoFX started coming out and stuff like that. And that started getting like this thing. And like, wait a minute, these are the same guys that were like, you down with OPP and that's all this. And now all of a sudden you're like, you're more punk than me. Like, it was a weird thing. Like, and I realized I don't know if that happens now, but it was a weird thing. I used to call them morphers. Like, you're just morphing with whatever is popular. And
that's totally happening now. Yeah.
Is it still happens?
Oh, you bet. Our kids call them like posers, or our kids have a different word for it. Yeah, but it happens that they just like, especially with TikTok, where the trends are changing like minute by minute. It's an interesting.
It's weird.
Dynamic of like it's just changing all the time. So if you're someone that's trying to like just be doing whatever is popular, that's exhausting with it changing with that frequency.
I think we had a lot of diversity in the house, so that maybe helped. Like my sister, obviously looking up to an older sister and doing that. My dad was really into like classic country. My mom really liked, at that time it was like Kiss FM, so she listened to that, but she also liked oldies. So that was her thing. So you heard all this different, and working with my dad, you playing Hank Williams and whatever, and so you end up like going, I can't stand. You don't go, I can't stand this. You just go, it's a decent song.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I had a friend that was, I think this was sealed the deal, is I had a friend that was a great musician, great, and he was really into grunge. It wasn't my thing, but I really learned to respect like what he's doing. So then I started hearing songs and going, I might not like this, might not move me, and I started realizing they would start to move me, but like the intricacy of the chords and stuff that they're playing, that's intense.
Yeah.
So then I started respecting keeping the beat and or changes in the music and stuff like that. That meant more to me than anything else.
Isn't that just like the best metaphor for life? Like just like finding what's great about each thing and letting it be great for that and not having to have it conform to what you like. Like, I think that if we can all be doing that, then we'll all be a lot happier.
If we all started with a little bit of compassion first and go out from there, like, imagine what would happen.
Yeah. And like trying to find the similarities. Like we've kind of said that in coming back to Southern California because we were in the Carolinas for so long. And one of the things that I think our kids experienced kind of going through high school in North Carolina was that, you know, it's such a homogenous population that they're kind of like jockeying to find the differences, you know, like it's kind of, it felt like with the teenagers, it was a more focus on the differences. And so we moved back here and kind of threw our kids into, you know, the melting pot that is North High School. And, you know, it was interesting to see that there's so much more of a focus on finding the similarities because there are so many things, you know, in a situation like that where people are from, you know, different races and different socioeconomic and just everything. I think one of the greatest things about Southern California is that there's just so much diversity and that we're looking for the similarities, that we're like, oh, you like that? That's so cool.
Yeah.
That I think that it's a very different kind of more healthy environment to kind of figure out who you are.
No, absolutely. You can be who you are and not be judged. I mean, I'm not really big on teams like left, right, sports teams. Yes. And like when I met Rihanna, her family was really into football. Yeah. I wasn't really into sports, but she's like, pick a team, and then we do a pool. We do a pool, and you can bet on it. And I was like, well, I like gambling. That's cool. I can do that.
You're like, I can get into taking your money.
So I picked the Saints because I saw the Rams and the Saints play in Anaheim when I was a kid with a friend. But as a couple years, and I pay attention because you got to see who's playing well and doing that. Yeah. But then as the team starts to change, you're like, wait a minute. That's my running back just left. And you're like, you're still a Saints fan, though. I was like, no.
Right.
That was like one of the reasons. But so it's weird to me, like, and that's where I use the metaphors. Like, people's like, they don't care about the makeup of the team. They care about
the header.
The header. And that's not cool. Like, that's not how life should be. Yeah. Like, each situation should be based on that, not who's pushing it or who's doing it. I mean, you could think about, we know they always have these kinds of agendas. I get that kind of stuff, too. But, like, if one side proposes something and then the other side proposes the same thing, but it's like they're I don't want to get into it.
That's pretty much like you just summed up my whole life philosophy, like whether it's religion or politics, that I'm just like, nobody is the boss of me, you know, like I'm not going to turn over my like precious opinions about things to an entity that may or may not, you know, like I'm just going to make individual decisions and kind of go from there.
You do you, I'll do me, and we should all get along.
We'll be okay.
Yeah.
Be okay.
That's such a neat, the way you put that. I hadn't thought of that because I played soccer, played sports growing up, and I always felt like I had like two different worlds I lived in because I was very much into music and that whole culture, but then I played sports. Like I remember I kicked field goals for the football teams. I played soccer at North, so I remember a sports assembly my senior year, and we were in the gym. You know, we had those. Friday we had a game that night and we're all lined up in the gym and everybody's there and cheering for the game that night and football players are lined up and I looked down the line and you know we had our jerseys on. It was just like everybody was wearing their Nikes and their jean shorts and it was just the same. And then you get to me and I had baggy jeans that were cut and super frayed in the bottom. I had like the red Doc Martens on. I was like, I don't really fit in here. But I always felt like then I lived in two different worlds and now like you were talking about sports, I like sports and I played sports, but I've never really had teams and I had that pressure in my 20s and 30s my brothers and my dad like fantasy football and very much into sports center teams, and I always felt this pressure like I got to pick a team. I got got to pick a team, but there's so much freedom and just realizing I don't have to, and to try to prescribe to, like you said, to one team or one thing, it just doesn't fit, and I don't feel like I can authentically be myself if I'm taking something external and saying, okay, this is who I am and I have to fit in this box.
Yeah, I think that creates like the starting like seed of like a lot of problems probably. Like I'm not saying sports is the reason for everything. Don't quote me on that. But no, it's the mentality.
Is the root of all evil.
Well, no, fantasy football though, don't you make your own team, right?
Yeah.
So by using fantasy football, you're basically picking who you think's the right person for each job, not based on who they're playing for or what they're associated with.
Right.
And they're the right one for the job. So that's like, maybe life should be more like fantasy football.
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
For sure.
This podcast, we're solving all the world's issues.
Yeah.
That's why
Just
every week we
fantasy football for life. Yeah, fantasy football is kind of a good analogy for how I like kind of make decisions, because like with all the political stuff right now, I'm like just like, let's just like what makes sense of, like I don't necessarily need to subscribe to one side or the other. Like I just want to find like what makes sense to me with each thing. So yeah.
Because
fantasy football.
I think like whatever the topic or the subject is, the truth is always going to be somewhere in the middle. It's never going to be on one side or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, that's usually like and I have a tendency to go down rabbit holes, and so I'm not as involved in like keeping pace on a lot of things as I used to be, because I found like to get to some kind of like what I consider enough truth to make it work for me, I had to spend hours going down rabbit holes, and that's just because the kind of person I if I'm going to take a side on something, I'd like to think that I'm first thing, you can change my mind in a heartbeat by giving me new information, which is like if it's information that I didn't know and I go, oh, I didn't see it that way.
Yeah.
I like to think that I'll change my mind in a heartbeat.
Right.
On the flip side, if I'm passionate about something, I like to think that I crossed all. Like the first thing I usually do is I read something that may be controversial or something. I always go for the opposite side first.
Read
like
the other side.
Yeah, and see what they're saying. Like, what are they saying? What are they? And then now you go back and you go like, all right, so they say this. Is this true? No. Yeah. Well, that's true. Or that's not true. Or okay. And then so it becomes like this. Looking, and like an hour goes by, you're like, I gotta get back to work.
Well, and if you just choose people and love and compassion, and that's going to be the answer every time. Obviously it's more complicated than that, but looking at issues, if you just choose the person, choose people, like people are just love and compassion versus getting caught up in a system.
Yeah.
So what, at this point now being, since 2015, do you guys have any makers still with you that were there from the beginning?
2 years ago, my father-in-law passed away. You're talking about, and I want to share the story too. We had just expanded to the other side, and we actually didn't have a Thanksgiving that year because we wanted to open for Black Friday.
Yeah.
So we redid the floors on the other side, and recently after that, he had passed away. But his footmark, and we're talking about their table with the marks, his footmark is in the floor.
Really?
So it's really cool.
That's cool.
I don't know. I got sidetracked on that. It's something I wanted to share, and then I
Yeah, no,
so what's the question?
Cool.
Like concrete, like actually put his.
Well, so actually we made the ramp in there. We poured that ramp, and I put our logo in it. But we were cleaning the floors. The floors had this like powder on them, and he was all adamant about this like 3-stage cleaning system and resealing it.
Yeah.
So when we were scrubbing it, and we were going probably too fast, we didn't wash off enough of the dirt, so it got sealed in. But
So it was unintentional.
It was unintentional.
Which is even better.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Wow.
That's cool.
So
He left his mark.
But as for the makers that are with us, like most makers stay. Like obviously most of the time it's because they move.
Yeah.
Or
they shift, their life shifts.
Their life shifts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I could literally can only think of like 4 or 5 where it just kind of like we just didn't.
Yeah.
It just didn't work out.
It didn't jive.
Yeah.
Well, it says a lot about your shop. Like you were saying earlier, how you guys are really looking for obviously a unique product, but also the story and the person behind it. Like that.
Yeah.
It's a a venture of love and passion. So those things don't really go away. So I can see.
Well, and that's another thing too, is it's more passion than profit based, which is probably isn't a good business model. But we've had people leave and then come back. And like, I don't think that a lot of people think, like, obviously it makes sense. Like, you go in here and you charge, we charge our consignment, and they're like, that's kind of high. And like, we got a lot of overhead.
Right.
And then, so they go somewhere else, like, oh, wow. But then, like, we've had we don't ask, we let them be free. Like, we don't tell them, you need to make this, just like this.
Right.
And then you're going to bring it in on consignment. And if it doesn't sell, then it's on you. Like, no, like, we're like, you do you, and you make whatever you want. So we've had people say, like, oh, well, they told me to make it like this, and it didn't sell for 2 months, and they told me to take it out of their store. And I was like, I don't know what to say, except for what happened here. Yeah. We can try and sell it here. And we're not. That's another thing, too. We've had stuff in there, very little, but we've had stuff in there for 3-4 years. But it's unique. It takes the right person.
It's just waiting for its home.
Yeah, exactly. It's waiting for its forever home.
Yeah.
Well, and that creates such a different vibe and environment. Like, I've never been into a store exactly like yours, but been into similar concepts, right? But what you guys do, and now I can, hearing your story and your guys' approach, like, it makes sense. Like, just creates a much different vibe in environment where I could see it really attracts other creative people as customers, right? And not just someone that's not necessarily creative. Like, oh, I want something unique, but
and there's so much in there too. Like, we have. I'll share the story. Is Rihanna came home. She's like, we sold. I think, what was it? I don't remember what it was, but it'd been there for a long time. Been there for like 2-3 years. She said, guess who bought it? And she told me the customer's name. I was like, oh, that's weird. She says, yeah. You know what the better thing is? We were checking out something happened, and they're like, oh, they just came in, and I'm going to get it right now, so no one gets it. And we're like, it's been here for 2 years.
Hurry.
Yeah. But it was crazy because that's people walk in and they see new stuff all the time. And it's funny because about prior to about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I was in there every day checking in, helping and walking in, and I would always go like, what's new and stuff like that. But with the start of the fab side and doing that, being more busy, I mean, I could go a whole week, 2 weeks maybe even, without stepping foot in the store. And then so now when I come in, it used to feel like, are we like stagnant? Like, is this like, it's the same stuff?
Yeah.
But like, to see other people come in and go like, oh, look at all this. Like, it's not. We're good. It reconfirms that, like, we're okay. Like, we have a lot of diversity, and that's just what it is.
Yeah.
What's this will come out next Wednesday. You guys open right now? Like,
so as of right now, obviously we're seeing how things going. We're pushing the online shop. So that's madeshopriverside.com. And then we're open from Wednesday to Sunday, 10 to 6, 11 to 6, 11 to 6. We used to be open 7 days a week, 10 to 6. But now with this, it's we're just seeing how it goes.
Yeah.
It could all change again tomorrow.
And it could.
Probably will to some extent. For someone that's a maker and wants to reach out, what's the best avenue for them to do that?
The best avenue is to come down any day that we're open, but preferably a Wednesday or Thursday. And bring pictures, show us what you got. We can break down the contract with you and show you all as we learned too, the contract used to be this big and then now it's this big. Well, and it's just covering everybody's, and being clear. And it's not, we don't want your firstborn or anything like that. It's just it's just setting guidelines. Cause I mean, I don't know if
you. This is a blood oath.
Yeah. It's just making things that you don't think about, and you're like, that would never happen. And there's one person, you're like, all right, well, let's just do this so that doesn't happen again.
Right.
And then they come down and they talk to Rihanna or Emmy, and then and that's it. Then they set their the makers always set the price. They set the sell price. So and then we take our percentage on that. But it's always to the makers. So they know how much, and that's where I used to get into is like, how much time did you spend on this, and how much time do you how much time do you want on this? That's what it's worth. So this is the
Right.
price that it has to be. And we help them with that. Like, this is what we have to sell it for so that you can do this and this and this.
Right.
That's
And
great.
then sometimes we sit and go like, would you pay for that for that? And then there's always the back and forth. And like, it was a lot of work. I can get it, or it's
Yeah.
super unique. So it's really so hard to price things in there because that's like one thing. Like I used to get in trouble for talking to customers at times because there would be like, there was this big T-Rex and the way that she welded everything on it and assembled it, it was beautiful. So well put, so well done. And he's like, I could do that. You could now that you've seen it.
Right.
Yeah.
But
right.
I doubt that you would have been able to put all those pieces
Right.
together like that. So that's what you need to take into it. Like and who knows
Right.
how long, like there used to be a couple that made some really cool things for us and they had a room and Robin would always like, she would know her all her gears and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And she'd be like, run, like they'd make it now. You'd see her like she knows. And it's like, she's looking for this one gear that they bought 2 months ago. And like, that's going to fit perfect. And then like, it was crazy. So there's more than just like labor. There's the
Right. That creative,
spark. Yeah.
I know. I always joke. I'll have people sometimes when I'm doing a photo shoot be like, "Oh, your camera is so nice. It must take great pictures." And I just want to be like, "Would you like to do it?" Like,
Yeah.
because there's an element where
It's in the eye. It's
Yeah.
in the experience and knowing like, those the photographers that they'll get those perfect moments. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a believer. It's not luck. It's knowing how the things and watching how people react.
it's
And
like a breath, like you breathe it, like you breathe it, and like right as it's gonna happen, and like it's a
and
whole,
like, get it now.
yeah, it's like a whole thing. Yeah. Well, and two, like even from like a logistical standpoint, you could maybe make that thing, but you don't have the tool. You would have to buy all the tool. By the time you buy all the tools and
Oh yeah.
scrap the first 3 efforts because they didn't work, and
Well, yeah.
it's such an ignorant statement.
Well, it's the same thing like with the fab shop. I mean, we have all kinds of tools in there now. We've been acquiring and growing and stuff like that. But like, people like think like, oh, that's $85 an hour to make something. That's insane. It's like, yeah, but
dude,
I have
you don't
the
know.
shop. I have the shop, and we got the overhead, and
Right.
these tools. If that tool breaks, like the welding machine breaks, well, you're down now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so it's like and that was a learning curve. And talking to I've been super fortunate through the chamber and all that to grow. I got a ton of mentors, and I'd say like in the last 2 years, that whole process of being able to meet like-minded and people that have gone through it, and that the information they've shared is priceless. And to compare, like when we first started, we're just going to start a business and do this. You know what I mean? But yeah, there's so many things that I've learned over the years, and especially of those of just, you don't think about overhead and this and preparing for this and this is going to happen. This depreciates and this. And you're like,
Which I think is how it has to be, because if you knew, none of us would ever start a creative business ever.
Right.
yeah. I don't think that unless, yeah.
You do just kind of have to like jump into it like totally naive, and and then you're in so deep that you love it, and and then you kind of like get the business sense, and you get the confidence to charge what you're worth, and it's a whole process.
When you just can't put a price on loving what you do, and being fulfilled from what you do, you just really can't. So people that online store, where's the best place for them to go to see the products, purchase products?
MadeShopRiverside.com.
Okay. Well, thanks, man, so much for coming in. Obviously, when we came back and heard about your store, we fell in love with it just hearing about it. So look forward to being a long-term customer and seeing more products come through there. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks again.
Thank you.